What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning on in. Much appreciated. And finding the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the channel. I appreciate that. If you guys like the Tobin and Leroy radio show, I'll put the link in the description here. You guys can check us on out there and be basking in the silly sauce as we get into every single weekday from 6 to 10 a.m. You guys can watch us live on Twitch every single day, all 4 hours. And, of course, get your clips, youtube.com/theticketmiami. But for you guys here, I appreciate that. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's been making a ton of news, ton of waves with his time in the Miami Dolphins. Interestingly enough, as soon as he leaves Kansas City, he launches this podcast. And, man, has he been it has been very Tua heavy. Like, it has been very Tua heavy. It has been Tua content heavy. Remember, he came out of the gate and had the whole Tua is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes comment. Then he was talking about the people's reaction to his Tua Patrick Mahomes comment. Then he had Tua on the podcast and talked to Tua about the Patrick Mahomes comments. And now he had Jalen Waddle on this past week, and they were doing a lot of praising Tua, dude. Like, I think it was really, really cool to hear the two big wide receivers, just really praise their quarterback, because nationally, Tua is getting hosed up and down. Like, nobody seems to really believe in this guy outside of, Dan Orlovsky. It was cool to hear Spicy Tua, that he was, kind of sticking it to some of the Twitter warriors during minicamp this year. But I think when it comes to a situation like this, Tyreek Hill is so valuable in a conversation like this because he is credible. He is a guy. I've said the thing with the whole Patrick Mahomes Tua Tagovailoa argument. It's like, you're really going to argue what he says with Tua Tagovailoa. It's like, I would get that if that was Mike Gesicki saying it. Like, nice player, kind of unproven, hasn't really made it in this league. Tyreek Hill is bona fide one of the top 3 receivers in this league. Put him in whatever order you want. And I think for most people would say probably the most dangerous weapon in the league, bar none, with his speed, the game changer that he is. So for him to go out there and say these things about his new quarterback, you're really going to argue it like he wouldn't know, which it was always a strange thing. But whatever's clicking for him, he has been doing a lot of Tua talking, and Jalen Waddle and him were talking about it. Jalen Waddle said that Tua was looking scary in practice, like scary. And I'm not going to lie, dude, the gooses were creeping up. Like, it wasn't quite goosies galore, but it was like a goose and a half. Like, it was really, really, it really got me going. I was like, that's like, they're speaking sweet nothings in your ear, basically. But Tyreek Hill did have an interesting thing where he's like, look, for all we're sitting here and praising him, that he does really believe this is Tua's true last chance to make that impression on the league. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what people think of, hey, this is what actually will prove it for Tua Tagovailoa, what will put him in the situation where people will actually believe in the guy as a player. I don't know what that looks like for people, for what is success, what will prove it ultimately that he is that guy. But I do think that for Tua, there's going to be the opportunities out there this year for him to have a lot of head-to-head battles. And I know it's, QBs are going against defense. They're not going against quarterbacks, but it is always on matchups. It is always quarterback v. quarterback. Like, it is. Who can lift it through. And it was interesting enough, ESPN came out with their top 10 rankings according to front office personnel. And we're going to get to see Tua Tagovailoa in a lot of these matches this year, which is kind of exciting. It speaks for the Dolphins having kind of a tough schedule, but it also is exciting because I do think we are going to be left with a lot of proving. Like, the list goes right now: 1 Aaron Rodgers, 2 Patrick Mahomes, 3 Josh Allen, Tom Brady's 4, Joe Burrow is 5, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert is 7, Russell Wilson is 8, Deshaun Watson is 9, and 10 is Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, honorable mention, with Derek Carr and Kyler Murray. So the Dolphins in that scenario, they are taking on 1, 2, 3, 4. They're taking on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in the top 10. Josh Allen being twice, assuming health. So 6 out of 17 games are against top 10 quarterbacks, and then 1 is against Lamar Jackson, former MVP. who Tua did beat on Thursday Night Football. I remember that game. I thought that I thought the Dolphins had no chance in that game. They were talking about that game like it was the homecoming for Lamar Jackson. And remember, it ended up being Jacoby Brissett starting that game and Tua coming in off the bench and looking fantastic. But you have this scenario where their top 10 list, the Dolphins are going to have 6 matchups against them, and really 7 if you count Lamar Jackson. Let's call it a top 11 list. All right. So 7 games. You got 6 quarterbacks. You're going to face Josh Allen twice. So it just makes you look at this and you're like, yeah, there's going to be proving to do, because there's a tie on Tua, like on every one of these games this year, assuming health for their quarterback and your quarterback. It's like Tua versus the Patriots is always going to be a Tua Mac Jones thing. Tua taking on Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, hometown guy in Miami. Pompano and Boynton Beach. But hometown South Florida guy. Always has a beloved fan base down here. Beat him last year. Ravens, Dolphins always seems like it's a thing. Then you got Josh Allen. Bills are the Dolphins. Daddy's important. Him versus Joe Burrow. Always important. There's just a lot of sexy matchups. The Deshaun Watson, and by the way, I'm putting this with the assumption that Deshaun Watson plays football. That's probably a bad assumption to make, but let's just, for bleeps and giggles, just say he is going to play. Maybe there's an appeal. He does play in that Week 10 matchup against the Dolphins. But playing the Deshaun Watson thing, that's going to be a thing. Plus, you also got to throw on top of it, there'll be a petty matchup against Flo. We were talking about this past week on the show about Baker Mayfield versus the Carolina Panthers. What's a better petty matchup? Baker Mayfield versus the Carolina Panthers, or Tua Tagovailoa against the Steelers and Brian Flores? Both are going to be juicy. And also you got a Mike McDaniel. Man, you got a Mike McDaniel revenge game against the I don't know if it's technically a revenge game, but you got a Mike McDaniel matchup against the 49ers. Prodigal son game is probably what I should call it. Justin Herbert and Tua are going to get down with it on week 14. Josh Allen, then Aaron Rodgers. Man, that's a bear of a late season run. Just looking at it now between December and January. But there's going to be a lot of while Tyreek Hill is right, even just looking at that schedule, while Tyreek Hill is right, there is going to be a lot of this is going to be the last year that Tua can prove it. I think it's going to be fun to see it because there's going to be a lot of matchups that have like influx Tua storylines interwoven into these games as well, and maybe he just sticks it to him and beats a lot of these teams, and that'll shut a lot of people up. I will say also, one thing that gave me goosies galore in this clip or this podcast was him talking about, he kind of was like dismissive of Andy Reid, which I liked, because he was praising Mike McDaniel and Mike McDaniel's play calling ability and Legion of Zoom with Mostert and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and everything they're bringing to the table. And he goes, I tell you what, this McCoachin, things are flying. I don't know if anybody's had as much positive praise from a fan base or expectation of a fan base without coaching a game. You want to talk about, like, Tua was beloved coming in and everybody's excited about Tua getting drafted and becoming the quarterback. But I don't remember a scenario where people were this fired up for a coach. And just the way he handles himself, the way the players talk about him, the way he gets rave reviews from just people around the league, how he carries himself. There's nobody I've ever wanted the Dolphins. The Dolphins have been getting off to some awful, awful starts in their franchise's history. Like, there's nobody I want to get off to a better start than Mike McDaniel, just so, like, that momentum keeps up, because this guy has been rolling with the positive stuff left and right as this stuff goes on. So to hear the way Tyreek talks about him coaching and calling plays and being in a rhythm compared to a guy like Andy Reid, who's like, looked upon as one of the gurus of gurus, was really, really cool. So listen, Tyreek Hill has been the Dolphins' best PR guy. The one thing that I will say he told a whopper on, though, this whole underthrow gate was brought back up because he's like, I really think that they just did it to get talking. I'm telling you right now, the Dolphins did not do that to keep talking. They did not do this to throw the scent off of anybody. The reason the Dolphins did that is because Tyreek Hill was the biggest part of the offseason. He was the prize of the offseason for the Miami Dolphins. They were dying for that first highlight that they could just jump to social media with and give it to Tyreek Hill. That's all that was. There's no second motive behind it. and somebody didn't really think about how it actually looked on video. They just saw Tua to Tyreek. Let's get that on the internet immediately. And it was 7 million views, and it backfired on them. There was no momentum. Somebody just got excited. They got excited. They jumped the gun. You know, sometimes you just do that. Like you don't think throughout. You get too excited. You jump the gun, and you didn't realize I made an oopsie-doo. I made a bad move here, and that's what happened there. Flat out, simply, no other motivation, no other thing to talk about really with this. This is what happened there. That's all that there is. There is no secret meaning behind the Dolphins putting out a terrible looking throw from Tua to Tyreek Hill, other than they just wanted something that was Tua to Tyreek Hill. That's all that was. So other than that, though, listen, he made up for that tenfold because he put out the Tua montage. This guy has been the best PR the Dolphins have had in a long time. This guy just knows how to, he just is like pumping out all this positive Fins vibe. So closing on training camp, it's going to be fun to check out.